Welcome to the Answer is Yes podcast, where we interview some of the most interesting people that have said yes to opportunities in their life. We hope that through these stories, you can learn to create your own destiny by saying yes along the way. Join us as we explore the new series covering topics such as passion, integrity, and hard work. I'm your host, Jim Riley, and I hope you enjoy these interviews as much as I do. I believe that everyone has an important message worth hearing. Hello and welcome to the Answer Yes podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We've had a great week of guests, and last week we had the 100th housewife of Orange County. Peggy was on, sharing her story about not only just being on the show, but we spent a lot of time talking about her breast cancer and survival and feeling like a whole woman once again after going through all that. So I really appreciated her time. And then this week I had Kyle Turley, used to play for the Vikings in the NFL, talking about knowing your truth and your own realities in these tough times. So thanks to both of them for being on. You know, when I get an email from a friend, David Meltzer, suggesting a guest, and the first line I read is, "Oh, and he's legally blind, warrior and adventurer," my answer is yes to having that person on the show. So today I have Sean Callagy on the line. Sean, how are you?
Joe, I'm awesome. And thank you, guys. Thank you for having me, and thank you, everybody, for listening in today.
Well, seriously, when David Meltzer and his team of people reach out to me with the guest, I know it's going to be a good one, and I didn't get past the first couple lines on your bio and said, yeah, I got to talk to Sean and see what his story's all about, and I appreciate you making some time. Usually we like to just go back to where life started for you, not talking about all the way to birth, but maybe coming out of high school into college, what career opportunities did you experience early on, and then we can lead into what you're doing now and some of the great things you're doing.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jim. For me, it was all about being a professional athlete. So I grew up as a high school baseball player, football player, and wrestler. I was a Division I recruit in baseball and football, and I chose Columbia University. I was clear that I had a very good shot at being drafted, and that was what I wanted to do. And I also knew that I had a hereditary degenerative eye condition called retinitis pigmentosa, which leads to blindness. My grandfather was blind. His brother was blind. Other people in my family are blind, cousins. And I knew it was going to happen to me eventually, and I was hoping to beat the clock for as long as I could. And I was captain of the team. I was multiple All-Ivy, at different years, All-State in New York, had, a very strong career in college. And right towards the end, I started just having the beginnings of challenges with fly balls under the lights. Mm-hmm. And that ended up costing me my opportunity to get drafted and go on. It was devastating. I had never thought there was anything else in the world I wanted to do but be involved in athletics. I thought it was such an unbelievable platform to teach people about life, and it's all I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And so at 22, I was done, and I had to figure out what happened next.
Did that throw you into a tailspin of depression, or did you just realize, hey, I knew this was coming, and now I've got to face that? I mean, how did you deal with that?
Yeah, I would say for me, there was a lot of deep sadness. I am super aware currently, and even back then, about labels. Somebody could have called it a depression for sure. I was definitely lost. And June 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of 1992, I sat by the phone, hoping and praying it would ring, and I knew it wouldn't, because the scout that I'd been working with, Eddie Ford, had told me, heartbreakingly, he was such, huge impact in my life all the way through high school, that it wasn't going to happen. But I hoped he would change his mind, somebody would change their mind, and, I knew it wasn't going to happen. And so for the next year, I was just kind of figuring it out, and I went to work. I'm a Columbia University grad, Ivy League unanimous baseball captain, and because I had absolutely not prepared for what to do next, I ended up as a door-to-door Electrolux vacuum cleaner salesman for a grand total of 2 days. My second day, this man, like Willie Loman style from Death of a Salesman, beautiful soul, took me to a house in a nearby affluent community. This woman opened the door, and he threw dirt onto her floor. Swear to God, like that actually happened. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, how did my life become this? And then I went on an interview at McDonald's for a management training program. And they're like, okay, cool. The way it starts at McDonald's is you work the fryer. And so I was like, this can't happen.
Yeah.
And so I ended up starting to work. I did get a job working for a bank in New York City, making about $25,000 a year. and not having any idea what I was there to do and having no desire to be there. But during that year, I figured out that I still had no idea what I was going to do, but I made a decision to go to law school.
Mm-hmm. So, it's interesting. I worked for Nordstrom's for 2 days, a lot like that vacuum salesperson job.
Did you throw dirt at people?
No, but it felt that bad. I was folding clothes, and most men, I don't want to categorize, but we suck at folding clothes. And all day I was folding clothes. I got there the second day, and they said, "I need you to fold clothes." Like, I don't think I'm coming back from lunch.
Kim, like the worst thing in the world for me in traveling is the idea of packing, and I still don't know how to fold any item of I don't know how to fold socks.
Yeah, see, there you go.
I feel you, brother.
So you decide to go to law school. What was it about law school that attracted you? Because that's a daunting task. Especially, right now I'm hearing your story and going, okay, this guy was part of the 1% club that made it into college ball and at the top of his game. Now you're talking about going to law school, another daunting task. What was it about law that drove you?
My blind grandfather, Pop, and my grandmother, Nani, were always like, you're going to be a doctor, or you're going to be a doctor. And they were always instilling that as a vision of success. And when I was working for the bank, I at first thought I would go to medical school, and I hadn't even taken any undergrad pre-med, and I hadn't even taken the undergrad math and science courses. So I actually went back for 2 weeks. I skipped that part to go to medical school because it's like that was conditioned into me, like doctor equals success.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, there's no way I'm doing this. And this is going to take a decade, and law school seemed like an easier path to like whatever that sort of amorphous vision of financial stability might be. And that was really it. I was like, I'll go to law school because lawyers make some money. I didn't want to be poor. And that was really it. I had no other desire other than make an income, support my family. I had no vision what I wanted to do because I was still really, I guess, stuck in that mindset of what I loved was athletics. Now I guess I'm going to spend the rest of my life just making some money. And that's really what it felt like at that point.
Pardon me for saying this, but both those careers, either law school or going to medical school, both of those careers, I would think somewhere in your mind you're going, how am I going to do those careers if I can't see? Did that thought ever cross your head, or were you just focused on the target of this is what I got to do?
Yeah, Jim, it was like so crazy. You're so right. Like it was just, and this is why such a breakthrough can always happen for all of us, to realize how illogical we are. There was no, like, you're so right. It's such a basic fundamental question. I was just lost. I was like looking to find myself and racking up $100,000 of debt in the process going to law school, lost, clueless of what it would mean, having no idea what the economics were. I didn't even know what a lawyer would do or how they even made more or less money. It was just, it was kind of like on this like progression of just do what the next step is. And this felt like the next step, but it probably was ridiculous. If you look at it objectively, utterly ridiculous for me to go down that path. You are absolutely right.
And while you were in law school, did you still maintain 100% of your sight, or was it slowly going, or what was the transition? Because again, and I say, pardon me for saying this, but I'm thinking about all those books and texts that you're going to be reading and studying and what goes into a law degree.
Yeah, I would say at that point I was still solid for reading. I had decreased vision at certain levels. Night driving was getting harder and harder. I wouldn't stop driving completely for about 15 more years from law school.
Yeah.
But I probably should have stopped driving about 10 years later. And it was little pieces and parts that were decreasing. Like if you had a hole puncher in a piece of paper, eventually it's not paper anymore. And that's like my sight. And eventually it just wasn't sight anymore.
Yeah.
So in law school, I did have that, but it was decreasing, slowly but surely. In law school, my issues were more like walking around at night, driving at night was not even a good idea at that point at all. But, as far as reading and those things, candidly, it wasn't a challenge. More what became present for me was, in the back of my mind, there was a clock. And I had to achieve financial success and build some stability because that clock was running on my site, but I hadn't connected up yet during law school. I had not connected how that would impact the future progression of things. So I didn't even understand the business of law, or quite frankly, even that it was a business. As ridiculous as that sounds, because all I, again, ever thought about was athletics and how that worked. I didn't even understand capitalism and how it worked, truly.
Mm-hmm. It seems like, and I'll commend you for this, that you were building the boat, getting ready for the storm. You know, you knew something was coming. You knew that you needed to prepare for the future, find that financial stability, and you didn't get lost in what was going to happen. You focused on what the goals were, and to me, that's the incredible part of it. Because nowhere in your story so far, you're using that as a crutch. You just continue to move into the next thing. Now, you've had a lot of success being an attorney and having your firm.
Yeah, I mean, so the magical transition for me, what changed everything, there's a couple different stages of my life when I learned the next breakthrough. When I was 16, I learned that people produce results differently. Mm-hmm. And that happened through sports psychology and some accelerations in my athletic career. During law school, I came to learn that learning occurs differently for people, and it's not based on IQ, EQ, it's based on our process. And that was massively game-changing for my success during law school, massively. Because I was a pretty smart guy, but I didn't have any comprehension of study habits until law school. Believe it or not, I made it through an Ivy League school as a B student with horrific study habits for prioritizing athletics. By law school, I learned that second breakthrough, the third key breakthrough of my life. Right. So number one, for breakthroughs for you folks, one, people of exactly the same talent and ability produce wildly different results. Mm-hmm. Second, we can change how we learn. Third, and this is key, is that in a capitalist structure, what matters is the ability to influence people with integrity and to know what to do with it. So I had that breakthrough when I was, I won the game of law school. Well, I thought I won the game of law school, because I had all the job offers I wanted at, big firms that paid what I thought was a lot of money, and it was not a lot of money. My first job I made $62,000. I had $100,000 of law school debt, had a one-bedroom apartment, and I had a few bucks left over at the end of the month. And I was working 16 hours a day.
Wow.
And I thought I had won the game of law school and life. Mm-hmm. So it was what the heck? It was the next, in the unfolding of the hero's journey. It's every time you think you arrive, there's the next mountain. And now the mountain was what? This is not, I didn't win. I didn't win at all. It's after in Star Wars and they blew up the Death Star, the next movie opens where they're under attack and siege by the Empire, and they've won nothing.
Yeah.
They still have a mountain to climb. So for me at the law firm, I realized that, oh my God, the people that are having the life they want, they're the people who generate business. And I don't want to sell anything. Sales is gross, disgusting, horrible. And then I realized it wasn't. And I encountered the work of Tony Robbins and Awaken the Giant Within. And that shifted my ability, my perspective on my ability to control my fear of rejection and to reframe how I felt about selling. And that was the beginning of everything changing for me.
Mm-hmm. So how did you put that into play in your career?
Yeah, brother, I jumped off a cliff. Everybody out there, I just jumped off a cliff. I quit my job. I was $100,000 in debt, had no contacts, had no money. And off the cliff I went, and I started my own law firm on my credit card. Uh-huh. And applying the principles I was learning about influence, the scalability of relationships and the leverage of relationships. And I was I'm going to see if this works. I'm going to start my own law firm at the ripe old age of 27, 6 months out of law school, on my credit card as an experiment to see if adult learning, call it personal development, call whatever you want, to see if this is possible. Within 2 years, I had a 40-person law firm, and I was selling the hardest thing in the world I could think of to sell, way harder than selling vacuum cleaners or suits at Nordstrom's. I was selling myself as a 27, 28-year-old attorney to people. And you know what, Jim and everybody? It worked. It was possible. And I had 40 people working for me. I paid off all my debt. I bought a beautiful primary residence, bought a beach house, bought a sports car, and thought I had arrived. Mm-hmm.